Hi folks, welcome to the A Minute to Midnite Show. This is Tony coming to you from New Zealand. I have with me on the show my good friend Joanie Stahl, who I've spent quite a bit of time with over the years in Southern California, who should have been being swamped out by a cyclone, but well, it sort of hasn't turned out to be half as bad, it would seem, as what they have said it was going to be. And so we're able to do this, which is great. And welcome, Joanie.
Hey, thanks for having me on again. I was looking forward to this, and I'm hoping that this information and discussion will be a benefit to people in many ways.
So do I, yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting topic that we're going to be covering, and largely it's to do with smart cities and AI and the Maui fires. Now, there are a lot of people have theories as to how these fires were started. We're not really going to major on that in this show. You know, we have people that saying it's caused by something that sounds like dew on the ground, you know, but ends with the word weapons. And there are people that are putting a case forward for that. There are other people like Dane Wigington from Geoengineering Watch says they don't even need to use those because with geoengineering they can create a bellows effect with 100-mile-an-hour winds, you know, sent in a tunnel sort of fashion so that heat becomes exponentially hotter than normal, and that's how they've melted steel for thousands of years. Okay, so whatever your theory is, we're not going to really go into trying to challenge them or advocate for either sort of one. But what we are saying is we do believe this is deliberate, right, Joanie? We both have no doubts in our mind that there was an agenda here. Whatever method they used to get the fires going, it wasn't an accident.
I 100% believe this was the epic land grab by all means. And we have it documented, and it's a free for all to see. It's nothing anybody has to dig up or have little, you know, communities where they put their thoughts together and try to come up with, no, well, here's what we think or here's what we believe. You know, there are a lot of theories, but you know what? There's some things that are just blatant. You know what I mean? You don't have to really look under rocks and try to, you know, look in so many different places. I think the gentleman you just mentioned, I do believe he's right. I do believe they have that geoengineering, that they absolutely have power to create winds that become like bellows that can ignite exponentially fires.
On the other side of things, you know, with the possibility of the other word that I mentioned, Joe Biden made a comment and said, we're laser focused on getting aid to survivors, which I thought was a very interesting choice of words. And since Biden doesn't even know how to write a speech or speak without something in front of him, I would say that was planned. And of course, then people are saying there was the Mountain Dew can Maui burst, saying that's a predictive programming. So we'll leave all that stuff because there's enough other information that we've got, which a lot of people probably won't know. And so we're going to major more on that. So with that, Joanie, you bought a book. Let's start there, eh? Because this is really fascinating. Show us the book and explain it.
Before I show them the book, let me just give a few minutes of a timeline. So the fire starts 4 days. Okay, and then we're watching it. And 4 days later, I look on something somebody posted of a screenshot. And it's a picture of this book called Fire and Fury. And it says, I didn't read the small print, which I'll read in a second. And somebody writes, would somebody please explain to me how it is even possible that 4 days later, this book can be written? Well, obviously, I'm hopping on Amazon because I want to say anybody can make that up, right? You can Photoshop anything. And so I actually saw it on Amazon, and it's called Fire and Fury, the story of the 2023 Maui fire and its implications for climate change by Dr. Miles Stone. Now, I was like, wow, and so I looked around and somebody else had noticed that it came out 2 days. It was put out 2 days on Amazon after the fire. Like, how was it even possible?
Well, the fires were still going. As far as I can see, it was seen to have been published on August the 10th, Now, and it says about the fires from August the 8th to August 11th, 2023. So it was saying August 11th and it was published on August 10th. So
Correct.
Crazy.
Correct. Okay. So I almost didn't buy it because it was like, for me, it was kind of expensive. I mean, $16 for a little paperback. And I said, I don't know, like I felt compelled. Jonathan was like, you probably should get it, my husband, right? And I was like, okay, so I bought it. So after I got it, a few days had passed. So I was talking to a friend yesterday. No, I looked on my own. It was like a couple of days ago. I thought I'm gonna look that up because I want to take a screenshot of it again. It vanished. Like it was scrubbed completely off of Amazon. I go to Google, Dr. Miles Stone, Fire and Fury, scrubbed off Google, scrubbed off search engines. I even look up who is Dr. Miles Stone. I do a thorough search as good as you can do it. It's obviously a fake name. So I'm like, wow, whatever. Like, so what took its place? Like, there was no Dr. Miles Stone Fire and Fury at all anymore. But instead, there was a book that replaced it called Fire and Fury by a different author. Now, the front cover kind of looked the same, which I'll show in a minute. And I want to show the book because I don't want anybody to go, yeah, well, how are we supposed to know by your word that it was there? Well, here it is. I bought a book. Here it is. This is the one that is scrubbed. You can't find it anywhere. So this one was replaced by now a different author, same book, same wording. The only difference is this one is 89 pages, but the same book, they shortened it to 44 pages by a Dr. Catherine Forbes, PhD, who happens to be a professor of women's studies and sociology at Berkeley. But it says nothing at all that connects her. I mean, it's very shady, okay? And so this book basically, like I went through it, it's a manifesto. It's a core manifesto of climate change. It totally is. And the funny thing is they already had it written like in the first pages. It's the 8th day, on the 8th day of August in the year 2023, an unfortunate incident occurred in the upcountry region of Maui, Hawaii, wherein a fire was ignited. And the fire swiftly escalated into an extensive wildfire, rapidly engulfing the entire island and so forth. And so that's just one part, but it goes immediately into the problem with climate change and that it created a global problem. This whole book uses the word global continuously. So it's very funny how a tiny little island has a town that burns down. And all of a sudden, this book is put out 2 days afterwards.
Well, it's put out not even before the fires are finished, because the fires were still going on August the 10th when that book was published.
Exactly. And everything in it is about this fire has caused a global, like a problem, like because of the smoke and all this stuff. And so now there's this new book and it took its place. And so now today, and then what was interesting is the second book, when I looked for this book and it was scrubbed, and then the Dr. Catherine Forbes book took his place, it said in the morning when I looked it up, it said just released. All right. 2 hours later, I look at it again and it says bestseller. But you know what it said? The first time I looked, out of print. Today, it says, buy it now. You can have it delivered right away. But the funny thing is today, when I looked it up, now there's a new book by a Michael W. And it has a different book description narrative. Like they try to lighten it up like, oh, this was a devastating fire. It caused so much damage. Lives were lost. Just historical town burns down. But at the very end, it says, something to the effect of, I have it right here. At the very end, it's called, here's the name of it, Inferno's Embrace. It says, isn't just a tale of destruction, it's a rallying cry for change with an eye towards a safer future. This narrative delves into the lessons learned, offering practical insights to prepare communities against the unpredictable forces of nature. Empower yourself with knowledge on wildfire risks and climate change adaptation, and take action to protect what matters most, and so on. It says, as you join the Maui community in remembering. So they keep it kind of squishy, emotional, like, oh yeah, and I want to be sensitive to the people. And if you're listening, if the people, you have loved ones in Maui, we love the Maui people. Our hearts go out to you totally. So we're doing this because everybody sees it. It is in your face. I just want to share some, but go ahead.
Well, just before you do, look, let's just look at this. This book, the fires started on August the 8th and they ran till August the 11th, approximately, right? Now, we have a book, a proper paperback book. It's not just some internet Kindle book, which was available or is available or whatever, but you actually were able to order and pick up and buy a hard copy of the paperback book 2 days after the fire started, while the fires were still going. This was supposedly published. Now, in any traditional sense of the word, who the heck writes a book and manages to get all the artwork done and get it printed up and posted out like that quick within days while the thing is still going? Nobody. Never heard of it in my life before. So I'm thinking AI. You mentioned the author doesn't exist. It's probably written, put together, maybe, potentially by AI. Have they now got some sort of system in place where they can do this and then have a printing set up, bang, where they just go, line all these things up and print them immediately? Or was this planned well in advance and then just released right on the day when they had it planned? I mean, I don't have an exact answer to that question, but never in the past has anything like this happened before, where you have an event.
Well, I think that excuse me. I think there are some things. I want to start right here. Remember Build Back Better?
Yeah.
Remember that? Build Back Better?
Yeah.
The government of Hawaii state's goal, the Hawaii state goal for rebuild is to make the entire island of Maui the first smart island.
Why can't we pull energy out of thin air?
No matter where you go around the world, reducing our impact on the environment and decreasing our dependence on fossil fuels is on everyone's mind. But how do you do it in a way that's going to benefit the most people? That was the question Hitachi asked before initiating the Jump Smart Maui project. This initiative demonstrates how electric vehicles, smart grids, and renewable energy like wind and sun can benefit Maui's residents, and it underlines the positive impact that Hitachi is making on the environment.
It's our future.
So they want the entire island governed by AI, as outlined in the Hawaii Digital Government Summit of 2023 that they have planned to host next month on Monday, September the 25th. And it says here on Maui, but I think you said you have news.
Well, I've seen their website and that they're claiming it was never supposed to be a Maui or whatever, but that it's in Honolulu. So, but regardless, it's still Hawaii anyway.
Either way. And so I have a link here to events.govtech.com, Hawaii Digital. It is titled, "There are plans to implement a digital AI government in Hawaii." So there is a link I have right here. I can give that to you afterwards. And also last January, excuse me, there was a smart city conference in Maui to turn Maui into a smart city island, pushing everything electric and making 15-minute cities. There was a contract last year that was signed to build high-rise condos and business in Lahaina, which was a historical town that could not have any new development done to it. And last July 5th, 2023, the governor, Josh Green, was invited to be the keynote speaker at the UN in the forum that included more than 40 presenters
New this morning on Sunrise, Governor Josh Green just wrapped up a keynote address in New York.
Yeah, he headed up a panel focusing on sustainable development at the United Nations.
We tried to lead on energy and climate. We were the first state to mandate 100% renewable energy for electricity. So it's, again, an opportunity as a small state with technically a small footprint, but we do punch above our weight a little bit because of our position in the Pacific.
Governor Green's address was to other government officials on a model Hawaii can provide for their sustainability plans. So those include successful collaboration efforts between government, businesses, and the community.
Green pointed out that Hawaii is in a unique position as the United States' only island state and has tried to lead the way in promoting the renewable energy. And from an article in Hawaii News called Hawaii News Now on July 2023, quote, Governor Green will present Hawaii's model for sustainability, including its collaborative approach involving government agencies, civil society, businesses, and communities, and its unique dashboard approach to transparency and accountability, said the spokesperson. The speakers who were invited will help to implement the United Nations Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals in 2030. Hawaii and others will share best practices and lessons learned to encourage the collaboration and replication of successful strategies and to foster a global network of sustainable development practitioners. The speakers who were invited will help to implement the United Nations Agenda for its Sustainable Development Goals in 2030. After a couple days after the fires went out, I thought, I want to hear from the locals. I want to hear what the locals are saying. Because, I could read this all day long, right? Like, we know this is going on. Like, most of everybody is going to be listening to this, Tony. They already get it. Like, they know what's going on. Maybe somebody doesn't. But what we're trying to show here is there was something did happen. Something very real. Not, oh, look, we're just getting together to see if maybe we can turn Maui into a smart city. It was done. It was agreed upon already at the UN. In fact, what I understand, Josh Green, who was a keynote speaker at the UN on July 5th, 2023, he was the first state representative, first governor out of all the states, and the only one to toss the hat into the ring to provide, I think it was called a VLF. It was some kind of a report. Anybody can look that up. So in other words, his hat is in the ring. So I wanted to hear what the people were saying right away. Obviously, this person's upset, this young man, and he's like, listen to me. He said, it has only been 2 days that this town burned down, and there are already developers and investors that are contacting the people that have lost their homes that burned down, that lost loved ones, and they're trying to already buy their properties pennies on the dollar, taking total advantage of them. He said, we're sick of it. He said, for the longest time now, for years, billionaires have been coming to us who have been here, the people that are from Maui, that are Hawaiian, and this is our land, this is ancient land, and they want us to sell it off. He said, we keep telling them, no. So then somebody else was saying, there was many other people saying the same thing. Another thing about Oprah Winfrey, many people, they saw Oprah Winfrey, she's putting pillows behind people and everything. And at first it was very, well, that's nice. I'm not saying what she was doing wasn't nice, but she's a player. She's a main globalist elite player. We've seen many photos of her with high elite globalists. I won't name names. We know that whole island is dominated by billionaires. Even the island of Lanai is 98% owned by a billionaire by the last name of Ellison. Oprah started out with 100 acres and bought 1,000 acres. According to other people, one person was saying, look, Oprah was here. She was late, right before these fires. I'm not blaming it on Oprah. We're not saying Oprah started the fire. We're putting pieces together here. Everybody can come to their own conclusion. This person was saying she had been coming around in Lahaina, and she was going around offering people to buy their properties, but they wouldn't sell. And so people are fed up with it because of the colonization that happened so long ago. They diverted the water for the plantations for the things that they're growing, like pineapple or whatever it is that they're growing there. I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound irreverent like that. So what happened was when the fire started, they shut the water off. There was about 30 to 35 firemen that got to Lahaina, and they were not even able to use the fire hydrant. There was no water. Another local said, "We were so stupid. We should have fought for our water rights." And now look at this. I watched other testimonials of locals saying, there were no sirens. We have at least 80 outdoor sirens throughout all Lahaina. We know that the mayor said, he didn't apologize. He said, well, those were for tsunamis. And I didn't want to scare anybody thinking that there was a tsunami. So people were like in their homes, and as the fire was starting to burn their houses, they were notified by screaming to each other. People were getting toilet water and trying something, like there was no water. Children, the day before, were told there's no school. The parents can go to work. The children stayed home. So there's massive loss of life with children. We just don't have numbers. They're saying in the hundreds. The media is not allowed there anymore. They're not allowed in. So another thing too is, it was so interesting that the officials of the island were called off. I mean, school was canceled, water was turned off, power, the escape route was blocked off by police. All Hawaiian officials were off the island, including the fire chief. Emergency alert system, EAS, was not used. And they stopped food, supplies, and medicine from coming into Lahaina. And local organizations like Hungry Heroes of Hawaii are the only way to getting into the people of Lahaina. And the government wants to buy all the property and turn it into state land. Josh Green, I just saw an article where Josh Green said that I have it right here. Hold on one sec. So article from, let me see here, sorry. It says an article posted on 16, 2023 on Blazing Press titled, Hawaii government says state is looking to acquire land that was destroyed in the fires. On Monday, Hawaiian Governor Josh Green announced that his administration was considering acquiring properties in the seaside resort town of Lahaina that had been destroyed by the recent wildfires. He vowed to prevent foreign buyers from swooping in to exploit the tragedy, suggesting the state was better suited to take control of the land. And I just call that out right now. I just so call that out right now, Tony, because I'm incensed by that, because I'm like, Josh, you were the one who was the keynote speaker at the UN agenda, and you were the one who threw your first hat in the ring, and you agreed to be part and complicit with the 2030 agenda. And so the fact that you are sounding like compassionate and you want to buy their properties, the state, so that you can like, no, we'll handle it. It's better that we handle it. You just gave up the island. You already gave it all up. See, the thing is, Tony, now these people are not even going to get insurance. Let me explain that. The people, not everybody had fire insurance. In fact, a lot of them didn't, because these are lands that have been passed down from generation to generation. People have been there for 80 years. It says, I wrote down here, I'll just read it. Most did not have insurance, as a lot of the land has been passed down from generation to generation. It's sacred land. Now, let me just talk about the sacred land aspect of it. Maui was the first, it was like the capital of the Hawaiian Islands, the Kamehamehas. King Kamehameha, that was his throne in Lahaina. That was considered a royal city. Now, of course, they moved it to Oahu, but that's considered, that's royal land. I mean, there's things that I look at and I think look, I would rather err in a sense of maybe going slightly too far, because there's things that the government has done, and I'm not just talking about the Hawaiian government, but we're looking at a government, a global government, the UN, they're putting together this global sustainability 2030. This isn't an island, it's going to be a playground. Really, that's what it is. And these people, these are their ancestral lands. It's not even for sale. Listen to what happened. It says the 2.3 billion in insurance is what the payout would be right now. Not long ago, Hawaiian government officials in the areas that were affected by the wildfires passed a law saying that land cannot be redistricted for new building permits unless some sort of a serious natural disaster occurred. 3 districts that are very sacred to the Hawaiians burned down to the ground. People called their insurance companies after the fire, and the insurance companies for the first time informed them that there were zoning infractions on their land, so they could not honor their insurance policies. And within 24 hours of these people losing their homes, the same developers where the Hawaiian elders fought in court to have that law passed are already calling these people and making them offers for their homes. And, you know, that just blows my mind because, you know, there's people that the Hawaiians, they're traumatized. I mean, there's a girl I listened to brand new yesterday. She just put out a video yesterday and she was crying. She's like, there's bodies still floating in the water. She said, there's people that are stuck in these shelters, these FEMA shelters. She said, and the Red Cross, like people are giving to the Red Cross. She said, it's so disorganized, you can't get anything. There's people that are stuck in another part, like they ran to some other people's home in the island, but they're forced to stay where they're at. You have to be given day passes. Like you have to tell them, oh, I just want to go and get medicine because now see, people are not getting the medicine that they need. Because if you leave your house, according to this local, and he said, my grandma's house burned down in Lahaina. I had to bring her here away from, because I live in another part of Maui. He said, she's diabetic and she needs medicine. And he said, you know what will happen if I go down there? If I go down there to try to get medicine, they won't let me back. He said, I have a bunch of people stuck in my house and there's no food. Because if I leave to go get food, they're going to keep them there. You know what I say? They're going to take everybody off that island. This is my guess, my prediction. I don't really like to use that word prediction, but I believe what they're here's why I believe it, because nothing's going to happen. That land, by the way, the EPA is involved now. They're looking at all that land as like, it's poisoned, stuff is, dangerous. You can't walk through it. Not to mention eviction notices. Let me get into that. A resident said that they're giving eviction notices already to people whose houses didn't burn down. And the mayor is evicting entire buildings of residences of some of the only people who still had homes. And it's a 45-day, you have 45 days to go. And these are the last people on the island that still have a home left. Listen to this. A chiropractor and a volunteer at a shelter in Maui said, I can tell you that the victims, are being told by their insurance companies that their properties that burned down were actually violating code and will not be rebuilt. Interesting that they were able to obtain an insurance policy to begin with if it was not within thy city code. See what I mean? I'll stop here for a minute. I've said a lot right now. I've got a few more things to say. I don't want to take up all the time, but this is just what people need to hear, what's going on. I mean, Tony, the people aren't going to be able to stay on this land. They will relocate them because they've already taken over this land. And so all this talk of like, no, we'll help you get back and stuff. It's already done.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's evil. But it fits with the World Economic Forum and the UN's Sustainable Development Goals perfectly, the whole smart cities and you'll own nothing and be happy. and so on. It just fits perfectly for the picture of what Klaus Schwab and them have been saying that they want. And here's a perfect place to start.
Yeah, and so let's just throw it out there. Was the fire started on purpose? People said that there was multiple fires that all started at the same time. These are locals. These are people that are down to earth, hardworking, no agenda, no reason to make stuff up, super humble, and they're like, no, we saw major fires that all started at the same time.
Well, they're not normal fires either, because you've seen things like steel being melted and different things like that that wouldn't normally happen in a normal fire unless there is some external force that's making the heat extra hot, like I mentioned earlier. So there's something so suspicious about all of this. That's for real. It's too many coincidences.
Way too many coincidences, and everything is so suspect, but there's things that are so glaring, right? The UN meeting, just, like people buying up the land, all the things that we said, we don't need to repeat it. But this made me really upset.
Yeah, totally.
It really did, because I'm like, what are you playing with? I mean, really, do you ever just think about this, Tony? Because I do. When we look at all the stuff that we all look at and see what's going on, do you ever get this feeling like they're playing us?
I feel like the Illuminati, the Illuminists, the whatever you want to call them, are laughing. They feel like they have everything so far sewn up now. They've pulled out all the stops, and they're just laughing at us. I mean, to put out a book like that, probably, with an author that doesn't even exist, and then have 3 differing editions of it and so forth, all happening so quickly. I've never heard of anything like that before. It's probably AI driven or contributed to it, but that's all part of their goals. And the fact that they're doing this sort of thing, is this the new normal? Man, it's just crazy.
But the whole thing is evil.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I would say either somebody sat down and wrote it, or I would think AI did it, right? Because all you got to do is an AI thing is say Maui fire, global climate, and in 3 seconds you have a manifesto. Okay, here it is. This is evil. Yeah. This is evil, what's happening. And then for them to put this out, I think is so evil.
Yeah.
Like when I looked at this, I was just like, it was hard to look at. I mean, I'm glad I got a copy.
Yes. Well, you can prove that it wasn't, some fake book, that actually is a book, because you've got it. You got a copy of the original book. So
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy. And I think we're going to see more and more of these types of events happening around the world. And it's unsettling, because, life is not the way it was pre-2020 or, 2019, really, because, in New Zealand, things started to change even before COVID. But, it's rapidly changing. So, Joanie, going to a different note then, putting God in the picture, what do we do, or what are your thoughts on all of it?
Well, I think when you realize where we're at in prophetic timeline, that you can have your feet on the rock of ages, and that our God there's never a moment that he's not in control of all things. And he's not stopping it. He's allowing it because he is coming back again. He wants to set up his own kingdom. And that's all. And we see everything. We can go all into detail for the next hour, which we will not. But when you know your God, you look at all this wickedness and you look at all this evil and you say, but this is the very thing that we read about in the Bible, maybe not the modern details, but we are God's people. And God has his hands on his own people. And the last that I saw, God makes an all-power claim. He says, the earth is the Lord's. He says, in fact, it says it in Job 41:11. It says, for the heaven and the earth is mine. And he said, and in other places, he says, all things are mine. Another place he says, I created the heavens and the earth. Everything under the whole heaven is mine. The north and the south, I created. So all these people that are running around like ants that are evil and that are satanically inspired, they're only being used by Satan, because I fully believe, Tony, that not long ago, God gave a nod to Satan. This is your time. Now go do it. Just like he said to Judas, that son of perdition, what you're about to, what you're going to go do, you go do it. And he went out, and it was night. And you know what? It is the night hour. When Jesus was resurrected, he was walking with Cleopas and his friend, and they finally got to that Cleopas's house. It was night. Cleopas said to him, because Jesus made as if he was going to keep going, and he said, he constrained him, come in with us, for the day is far spent and the night is at hand. Yet we see in Romans chapter 13, I think it's verse 13, it says, for the night is far spent and the day is at hand. Let us put on the armor of righteousness. Let us have the weapons of righteousness in our right hand and the left. The Lord tells us not to fear any of this, not to fear it, because our God, he owns everything, and he's coming again. And so all of these things, God looks at, it says, he that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. He shall have all of them in derision. Read Psalm chapter 2. The kings of the earth gathered themselves together, right? That's what it says. Against his anointed, but he that sits in the heaven laughs. And it says, that's the picture of him destroying. Look, it says he's coming to judge and make war. He has a perfect judgment for all of this. And God always gets the last word. He's the author and finisher. He's the first and the last. He's the Alpha and the Omega. He's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And he is almighty. And so we can have confidence in Jesus Christ all through this time that we're going through this, because there is a purpose for us to be here, Tony. Do you realize that? It's not like, oh no, look what it's like. No, there's a reason. We need to rejoice and stand up and be strong and say, no, there's a reason Jesus has us. There's a purpose. It's the will of God we're alive. It's not to cower in some corner, but to say, no, you know what? God is almighty. He is all power, and we're here, and we're his, what I call ready servants. We are his ready servants, and if we are putting our trust in the Lord, then we're going to be entrusted to do things that we probably never thought we would do before, and to get into a life of prayer that maybe a lot of time, because so much time has passed, a lot of times prayers can be sleepy. But during these times, we can have boldness. These are the times that are going to give us holy boldness in Christ, where we're going to say, let me tell you something, how it's going to go down. This is what the Lord says. The Lord says that he is coming again, that he is coming to judge and make war, that he will never suffer the righteous to be moved. We could begin to use those scriptures, because God wants us to. And when we do that, he just says, believe on me, and he'll do it. And so I just want to encourage everybody, be strong, be courageous, be bold, have holy boldness, trust in the Lord your God, stand upright, put your shoulders back, go forward. It said, I love that scripture. I'll leave this last thing. It says, who is this that cometh up before me? Fair as the sun, fair as the moon, clear as the sun, and terrible as an army with banners. That is the body of Christ. That is the prophetic piece of the church. And we are at the end. And you know what? I believe God has so many things that Satan has no idea for his saints to do in the earth. You watch and see. Because as it gets darker, we burn brighter. I'm convinced of it. And so we can rejoice. Like Paul said, rejoice in the Lord. Again, I say, rejoice.
And I think pray for courage. We're all going to need courage as this beast system becomes further and further into play, and we're going to really have to keep our eyes on the Lord, because things are getting darker and they will not get any better in the near future until Jesus returns. Joanie, where do the people find you online?
Well, I'm on BitChute, Rumble, and my YouTube channel, Joanie Stahl's Field Notes. So I guess I could just hop over to the YouTube channel and just subscribe there.
Sounds good. Okay, well, thanks, Joanie. That was an interesting discussion, and it was really good to catch up with you again. And we'll have to do some shows again before too long.
Sounds good to me. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you too. And folks, don't forget A Minute to Midnight as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and BitChute, Rumble, and our Apple podcast channel. But primarily, I want to point people to our website, aminutetomidnight.com, because if you're only subscribed to us on YouTube, they ban some of our videos and we have to be careful on YouTube. So I really want people to get it into their heads to get to some of our other platforms, not just YouTube. And A Minute to Midnight's run 100% by donations, and a big thank you to the folks that do help us out. And the music used I've written, played and recorded. So that's it for this episode. God bless, and God willing, we'll be back in a few days' time.